The Battle of Hastings, fought on October 14, 1066, is one of the most consequential events in English history. This battle marked the culmination of a fierce struggle for the English crown and resulted in the Norman conquest of England. The clash took place near Hastings, on a site that would later become known as Battle Abbey, in southeastern England. The forces involved were the invading Norman army, led by Duke William of Normandy, and the English forces, commanded by King Harold II. The battle was significant not only for its immediate political ramifications but also for its profound long-term impact on the culture, language, and governance of England. The roots of the Battle of Hastings lie in a complex succession crisis that arose after the death of the childless King Edward the Confessor of England in January 1066. Edward's death left a vacuum of power, as there was no clear heir to the English throne. The resulting power struggle attracted several claimants, each with strong ambitions and varying degrees of legitimacy. Harold Godwinson, a powerful English nobleman and the Earl of Wessex, claimed the throne immediately after Edward's death, asserting that Edward had promised him the crown on his deathbed. Harold was swiftly crowned king by the Wittenagement, the Council of English Nobles. But his claim was contested by two others. One was Harald Hardrada, the King of Norway, who asserted that an earlier agreement between previous monarchs gave him a claim to the English crown. The other, and ultimately the most formidable contender, was Duke William of Normandy. William of Normandy claimed that Edward had promised him the throne years earlier during his exile in Normandy and that Harold had personally sworn to support William's claim. When Harold took the crown for himself, William saw it as a betrayal and prepared to invade England to enforce his right. This set the stage for one of the most famous military campaigns in European history. On one side was William, Duke of Normandy, a capable and ambitious leader with experience in warfare and governance. His forces were composed of a mixed army of Normans, Bretons, Flemish, and other continental mercenaries, numbering around 7,000 to 8,000 men. William's army was well equipped with cavalry, infantry, and archers, a diverse force that reflected the evolving tactics of medieval European warfare. The use of cavalry, in particular, was a major advantage, as mounted knights were highly mobile and could exert devastating shock force on the battlefield. On the other side was Harold Godwinson, newly crowned King of England. Harold's army was composed largely of infantry, including his household troops known as housecarls, who were professional soldiers armed with axes and heavy shields. The bulk of his army, however, consisted of the Fyrd, a militia of common men summoned from the local shires, who were less trained and poorly equipped compared to the Norman knights. The English forces numbered between 7,000 and 8,000 men, similar in size to William's army but lacking cavalry or significant archery units. The challenges for each leader were starkly different. William's primary struggle was logistical. Crossing the English Channel with a sizable invasion force was no small feat. He had to secure ships, supplies, and favorable weather conditions for the crossing, which delayed his invasion by several weeks. Harold, on the other hand, had to contend with multiple threats. Earlier in 1066, he had already faced and defeated Harald Hardrada and his Viking forces at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in northern England, a victory that came at great cost to his army's strength and stamina. After that battle, Harold had to march his exhausted troops over 200 miles south to meet William's invading force, leaving little time for rest or preparation. The battle took place near the town of Hastings, on a hill now known as Senlac Hill, some 6 miles from the coast. The terrain played a crucial role in the battle's dynamics. Harold's army took up a strong defensive position on the ridge, with a steep slope protecting their front. The English forces formed a shield wall, a solid defensive tactic that involved interlocking shields to create an impenetrable barrier against enemy attacks. This position gave Harold a significant advantage, as the Normans would have to charge uphill to break the English lines. The battle began on the morning of October 14, 1066. William's forces launched an initial attack with their archers, hoping to weaken the English lines, but this had little effect. The arrows failed to penetrate the shield wall, and the English held their ground. Following the archers, William sent his infantry and cavalry forward in repeated charges, but the English shield wall remained intact, repelling the Norman assaults. At one point during the battle, a rumor spread among the Normans that William had been killed, leading to panic and a temporary retreat. William, realizing the danger, famously removed his helmet and rode through his troops to show he was still alive, rallying his forces for renewed assaults. A key turning point in the battle came when sections of the Norman army, likely out of frustration with their inability to break the shield wall, pretended to retreat. Whether this maneuver was intentional or a fortunate accident remains debated, but it had a profound effect. As the Normans appeared to flee, parts of the English army, mainly the less disciplined, broke ranks and pursued them down the hill. Once the English left their strong defensive position, the Normans quickly turned and attacked the disorganized English forces, cutting them down. This tactic was repeated several times throughout the day, gradually weakening the English shield wall. In the later stages of the battle, the Normans concentrated their attacks on the English center, where Harold and his housecarls were positioned. According to legend, Harold was killed late in the afternoon, struck in the eye by an arrow, though the exact circumstances of his death are uncertain. With their king dead and their lines collapsing, the remaining English forces scattered, and the battle was effectively over. The Battle of Hastings resulted in a decisive Norman victory. William's triumph allowed him to consolidate power in southern England and claim the throne as King William I of England, better known as William the Conqueror. Over the next few years, William and his Norman followers subdued the rest of the country, and the Norman conquest of England was complete. The significance of the Battle of Hastings cannot be overstated. Politically, it marked the end of Anglo-Saxon rule in England and the beginning of Norman rule. William's victory dramatically altered the power structure of England, replacing the old Anglo-Saxon nobility with a new Norman elite. This shift in power also had long-lasting cultural and linguistic effects, as the Normans introduced their French language and customs, which mingled with the existing Anglo-Saxon culture. Over time, this fusion of cultures gave rise to the English language as we know it today, with its significant French influence in vocabulary and structure. Moreover, the Norman conquest fundamentally changed the governance and legal system of England. William introduced the feudal system, which reorganized land ownership and established a more centralized form of government. The Domesday Book, commissioned by William in 1085, was a detailed survey of landholdings in England and remains one of the most important historical documents of the period. The battle also had broader European implications. William's success strengthened the ties between England and Normandy, influencing the politics of France and leading to centuries of conflict between the two kingdoms, most notably the 100 Years' War. The Battle of Hastings was not merely a military encounter. It was a transformative event that reshaped the course of English and European history. William the Conqueror's victory established a new ruling dynasty in England, and the effects of the Norman conquest reverberated for centuries, influencing England's language, culture, and political landscape. The battle stands as a testament to the profound consequences that can arise from a single day's conflict, forever altering the trajectory of nations.